Men often don't need more motivation. They don't need another motivational video. They don't need another podcast telling them they need to be waking up at 5 a.m., having already cooked Sunday dinner, ran 4 marathons, and made $10 million from their 500,000 rental properties. They don't need somebody screaming at them to work harder, because motivation probably isn't the real problem. The problem is that you've made too many things negotiable in your life. You train when you feel good, when you feel motivated. You save money when it's convenient. You work on the thing you're trying to build when you feel inspired or when you feel motivated. And then you wonder why, you keep starting over. You walk away from bad situations until you feel lonely, then you walk right back into them. And then you wonder again why you keep going back and you keep chasing this dragon. Motivation is useful, but motivation is temporary. It's an emotional feeling, It's a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling you might get sometimes. Standards are what remain when motivation flies. When motivation disappears, you need something still there to keep you in place. Think about something basic like brushing your teeth. You don't wake up motivated to brush your teeth. You just brush your teeth because it's a standard you do. It's a standard you have. You don't wake up every morning desperately inspired to wash your face. It's just a standard you have. You do it because somewhere along the way, it became part of the minimum standard you accept for yourself. And I think more areas of life need to work like that. Training shouldn't always be, well, do I feel motivated today? Sometimes it should simply just be, I'm somebody who trains unless there's genuine reason I cannot. Money shouldn't be, I'll try not to waste too much money this month. It should become, I don't repeatedly spend money poorly in negative ways that are keeping my ass broke. Relationships shouldn't be, well, I hope this person eventually starts treating me properly. It should be more, there are certain behaviors I simply will not continue accepting. These are standards, and standards are powerful because they remove negotiation and ambiguity. Every time you negotiate with yourself, you create an opportunity to quit. Well, I'll start on Monday. I'll start tomorrow. I'll start next week. One more takeaway, one more cheesy, greasy burger, one more drink. I'll tolerate it one more time. Oh, it wasn't that bad. I'll let her off the hook. I'll finish the project when I feel more inspired. And eventually your life becomes the result of hundreds of exceptions. The uncomfortable truth which underlies or underpins all this is that you usually get roughly what you're willing to tolerate. If you tolerate being constantly late, you'll become somebody who's constantly late. If you tolerate living in chaos, you will probably end up living in chaos, and chaos will become normal. If you tolerate people walking into your house and trailing dog shit all over your floor, then likelihood is people will walk into your house trailing dog shit all over your floor. If you tolerate breaking promises to yourself, you stop trusting your own word. And this matters big time, especially as life goes on. This is why standards matter. They're not about pretending to be perfect. None of us on earth here are perfect. You're going to have terrible shit days. That's no doubt about it. You're going to miss sessions in the gym. You're not going to feel creative every day. You're not going to feel inspired to do the best you possibly can at work every single day. You're going to occasionally fall below your own expectations. And that's fine. The standard isn't, well, I never fail, because you are human. The standard is, I don't allow failure to become normal. There's a big difference there. If you miss one training session, that's fine. If you've missed 3 weeks because you can't be bothered, something needs correcting and addressing. If you waste £20 on something, life goes on. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But if you're constantly spending £20 here, £30 there, spending everything you earn and wondering why nothing changes, that's the pattern you need to recognize. Standards draw a line in the sand, and when you fall below it, you need to move back beyond it. The biggest shift happens when you stop asking, do I feel like doing this today? And start asking, is this the kind of man or woman I'm trying to become? Motivation will ask, how you feel. Standards asks who you are. And you don't need to wake up inspired every morning. I certainly do not wake up inspired every morning. And the older I get, the less inspired I feel when I wake up in the mornings. You don't need perfect discipline. And you definitely don't need another 30 motivational clips saved on your phone to give you that boot in your butt that you think you might need. You have to decide what you will no longer accept from yourself. You decide what behaviors are the minimum. Decide your non-negotiables and then live there consistently. Motivation disappears. Standards remain. Subscribe if you want more honest conversations about men, discipline, rebuilding life, topical issues, topical things that are in the news, all these sorts of things, and rebuilding and modern life. This is Jake O'Neill Talks, honest commentary on modern life.